A lot of political experts are saying everything's, Pennsylvania is it. Vice President Harris, if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, she can't win. I actually think Michigan might be it as far as the most critical state, because most experts say whether it was Biden before or now Harris, they need to win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So it doesn't really matter if she wins Pennsylvania without Michigan.
Yes.
And in Michigan, the bottom line is we're in Wayne County. It's the most Democrat, I guess you could say, county. Detroit, Dearborn, other cities. And at this point, before Biden dropped out, Trump was basically winning Wayne County, which is pretty alarming if you live in, if you're a Democrat, because Wayne County, Detroit, traditionally goes blue overwhelmingly. Let's talk about Dearborn here. At the end of the day, Kamala Harris has been running for 2 weeks. I say running because she hasn't had to actually beat anyone.
Yes.
I mean, other than kind of crying more empathetic crocodile tears than Biden did, alluding to more sympathy, she has not signaled whatsoever a policy change. She, years ago, spoke in front of AIPAC very kindly. She's received a lot of money from AIPAC, and I haven't seen a policy or heard anything from her that indicates she would have acted differently than President Biden. Now that she is, obviously the nominee, likely, do you get a feel, you can't speak for all of Dearborn, but do you get a feel that the uncommitted movement, the folks in Dearborn that might actually decide Michigan, are more committed now that it's her?
Although I can't speak on the entirety of Dearborn and the Arab and Muslim population, I can feel confident in saying that Biden dropping out of the race due to the pressure of the uncommitted movement still has not changed our view. Unless Kamala Harris shows a substantial policy change on Israel-Palestine, wants to end this war in Gaza, wants to end the settlement empire in the West Bank, wants to create a Palestinian state, recognize Palestinian rights, we will not vote for her whatsoever. We are not afraid, us Arabs and Muslims, to exercise our newfound political agency and vote uncommitted.
Hey, listen up. Are you a real estate investor or considering starting investing in real estate? If so, then there are 3 things you need to be doing right now to make sure you haven't done something today that actually come back to bite you tomorrow. All right, what is it? Number 1, make your ownership of assets invisible. What do I mean by that? Set up your entity structures like limited liability companies and the like, so tenants and creditors have no clue that you're the owner of these companies. It's easier than you think, and it's a cure-all for aggressive attorneys and shakedown lawsuits. All right, number 2, hold real estate in land trusts that are owned by limited liability companies. Now, I know it sounds complicated, but it isn't. Here's the thing. Placing your real estate into an LLC works, but what is the risk?
We are not married to one political party. We will vote from whoever we think is best for our ideals, even if that means we don't vote at all. And we have a message to send to the Democrats as well, not just Kamala Harris. No more political theater saying you support a 2-state solution, but when it's time to defend the Palestinians, you do nothing. That's going to change. So you can either lose this election, come November, sit in timeout 4 years and think about what you could do better, or you can make that change now, apologize to our community, support Palestinian rights, and enjoy your term in the White House.
And do you feel, because obviously, it's a close community, do you feel, based on people you've spoken with, kind of Twitter talk, the discussions you've seen, that the majority of people share that sentiment? Again, not speaking for the whole community, but
110%. I mean, again, I can't speak from everybody else, but the people that I've interacted with, they're not falling for these, fake crocodile tears. Oh, this war needs to stop. I'm sympathetic towards the plight of No, we're not going to buy into that. No more. We're not going to eat up that nonsense. Now, do we welcome a younger Democratic figure within the party? Absolutely, like Kamala Harris, yes. Is there some slight growing optimism? Yes. But more importantly, as you have indicated, what has she said or done to inspire the Arab American community here in Michigan to support her? Nothing. She has said Israel has a right to defend itself repeatedly. She has not empathized whatsoever with the protesters who have spoken out against this war. she's oftentimes regurgitated the same harsh tone that her predecessor Biden did. So we're still very much on edge and on guard. I will say that we want a reason to vote for Kamala Harris, but she has to give us a reason. We can't just willfully vote for her.
And in general, obviously, you pay attention to politics, so you know about the whole lesser of two evils game that we're constantly being fed. And on a lot of things, we're told, yep, Democrats aren't doing what they say or they're not fulfilling their promises, but Trump would be worse on X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't feel what this community is feeling, but when you hear Trump will be worse, well, what could be worse than what is currently going on?
That's the thing. I don't think it can get any worse than a genocide. I don't think it can get any worse than mass displacement of 2 million people from not Gaza, by the way, is not a country. People always view it as a country. It's a city. 2 million people from a city that, by the way, is as long as this drive from here, from Dearborn to possibly Novi. It's about 20 miles. Gaza is about 20 miles long. It can't get any worse than that. It cannot get any worse than that whatsoever. Lesser of two evils, well, they're both evil. The lesser evil is still evil. So whether it be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, I'm still voting for two evils. We're not going to have this, vote for us because of Trump nonsense dangled over our heads. This is actually something that I think seems to go unnoticed. The dystopian Islamophobic society that Democrats are trying to push or indicate that Trump will enact if he's elected is already happening here in the United States. Mm-hmm. Visibly, Muslim women are being harassed in public, having their hijabs taken off of their head. We've seen Palestinians been shot, killed, attempted to be stabbed. We've seen thousands of Arabs and Muslims protest against this war lose their jobs, get doxxed, get harassed, not feel safe. To me, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's America is no different than the America that Donald Trump would have. So why should I vote for them? Why should any of the people here?
Wow, 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 folks. This is absolutely incredible news. Kamala Harris is not going to be able to win the state of Michigan, folks. She cannot win Michigan unless she has the support of the Muslim population that is there in Dearborn, Michigan and surrounding areas. It is the largest area of Arabs in America, Arab Americans, of which about 65 to 75% are about Muslim, and you have a large population of the Arab community in Michigan. They're not Muslim, they're a minority group, but they're like 30 to 35% are either Christian or Druze or Coptic Christians from Egypt. I mean, they're from Syria, from Lebanon, Jordan, and obviously Palestinian. And if this gentleman is just a simple microcosm, if this American Arab young man here is basically signifying and telling people, hey, look, especially the Democratic Party, and is telling Kamala Harris, guess what? Just because you dangle, this dystopian thing that if you elect Donald Trump, it's going to be so much worse. He's basically saying it's already worse. It's already bad. And they're just not going to take the Democratic Party for granted. And this is great news, folks. This is absolutely great. It's about time. It is about time that the Arab American community, the American Arab community, and I hate hyphenations, folks. You should be American first. If you want to add your hyphenation afterwards, okay, fine. But most people are, multi-ethnic, multi-racial. Our bloods are mixed. So what happens if you happen to be Arab, but you happen to have Lebanese and Egyptian and Syrian and Jordanian and maybe some Middle Eastern blood in there? What are you going to call yourself? It doesn't matter to me, but the first thing should be American, then hyphenate to your heart's content. All right. But it's not just the Muslim population within the Arab community. It's the Christian population too. And they are simpatico on about what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in, to the Palestinians. I'm telling you what, folks, this is not being taken account This is not being taken account into the polling averages that are being done. Because remember, they're saying Michigan is a toss-up. And in 2016, 2020, it was lost by Trump won it in the tens of thousands, and then he lost it by the tens of thousands, in the low tens of thousands. And now we're supposed to believe that Kamala Harris, who's having a hard time within the black population, especially amongst men and Latinos and Hispanics, and they're either going to, the Muslims in the Arab communities, are you going to sit this one out? They're going to vote third party, and maybe some of them, we hope, are going to pull that trigger, pull that lever. Sorry about that. Pull that lever for Donald Trump. Anyways, let's get back to more of the interview right now.
You know,
And let's say Kamala Harris came out tomorrow and said, if I was president and this was still going on, for Israel for offensive actions. Is that enough? Because then there's the issue of what's left. Where do refugees go? What policy promises does she need to make? Does the Democratic Party need to make to convince people here?
so suspending aid, conditioning aid would be a monumental first step, but it goes beyond that. We need the United States to do several things. One, enforce the laws on the books. We have something called Lehi laws. The U.S. gives weapons to Israel, and those laws stipulate you cannot use U.S. weapons to commit war crimes. Israel has done this, regardless of what the State Department says. Secondly, there's something called the Foreign Assistance Act. If we give military aid to a U.S. ally, and that said ally obstructs aid from coming into a country, that's a violation of U.S. law. So firstly, condition aid, enforce laws on the books. Secondly, blow up the settlement empire here in the United States. There are several nonprofits that fundraise money to build settlements in the West Bank. Kamala Harris and the Democrats have to enact laws to make sure that is no longer legal. And as it comes to the bigger issue itself with Palestine, she must exercise her right at the UN to say settlements are illegal. She must force the Israelis to take the settlements out of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And we must abide by previous UN resolutions to give the Palestinian states based upon legal jurisprudence that's been recognized by the entire global community. If she doesn't do any of these things, good luck come November.
I also find an irony because obviously the Democrats are running on this prosecutor first, felon, and that, we need to, no one's above the law. But I mean, if you watch the State Department spokesperson, I mean, day after day, the few journalists who grill him, it's like he's twisting himself into a pretzel to basically ignore international law, to not answer definitively if Israel is breaking the law, to dodge on war crimes. I mean, you could go even before October 7th. I mean, Israel shot and killed a Palestinian American journalist and then, dodged responsibility. There's been a lot of crimes before October 7th. What do you make of, you have this media and political machine seeming to, putting forth that law and order is very important and no one is above the law, but it seems except Israel?
It's hypocrisy at its finest. The U.S. will go to many great extremes to defend Israel. And you alluded to the death of Shireen Abu Akleh, who was just standing there, unarmed, doing her job, and was shot mercilessly in the head by an Israeli sniper. And there is no mentioning of it, yet about every month I see tweets from the State Department and Biden saying we need to pay homage to the Ukrainian journalists that have died. What about the Palestinian journalists that have died? What about Shireen Abu Akleh? There was a Palestinian journalist in Gaza right now who had his head blown off for the world to see, and they said nothing. They accused him of being with Hamas, even though they detained him for 12 hours and found that he had no connection to the organization whatsoever. They don't care about us. They don't care about us whatsoever, and it's a stab in the heart because we continue to put faith in the system only to be betrayed every single time.
I'd like to ask you, something that really strikes out to me is Kamala Harris's first ad. I don't know if you saw it. Had Beyonce's song "Freedom."
Yeah.
I'm not even going to get into that because, how free are people feeling? And your health care is tied to your job in America and many other things. But for a Palestinian American, I mean, when you hear politicians putting forth these themes of freedom, meanwhile, nobody could move in Gaza, or where you're told to move to safety, you're being hit with missiles and bombs on the way, or then when you get there to the safe zone, you're told you got to go, keep moving. I mean, what are your thoughts on that theme of freedom compared in context of what's happening?
I would say freedom for we, but not thee, right? So only a certain groups of people in the world or here in the U.S. can have freedom. Israelis could have freedom, but Palestinians can't have freedom. Israelis can have freedom, but the citizens of Lebanon can have freedom. The Israelis can have freedom, but the citizens of Yemen or the citizens of Iraq or Syria can't have freedom whatsoever. What is freedom? Define freedom for me. Is freedom only for people that subscribe and adhere to this neoliberal outlook on the world? Because it seems to me that every president, whether it be Trump or Biden or their predecessors, that says, if you adopt our way of thinking, you'll be safe, but if you don't, then we'll kill you. So what is freedom? What do you constitute as freedom? The freedom to kill those who don't agree with you? And then the freedom to shield those from persecution that do? Because that doesn't sound like freedom. That sounds like draconian authoritarianism that must be confronted.
And let me ask you, as we speak, it's being reported, many believe it's going to be Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro as the selection for Kamala Harris. He'd be the first Jewish vice president. It's not clear, he didn't serve in the IDF, but he volunteered in some program for the IDF. He's ardently pro-Israel. He's compared campus protesters in America to the KKK. Writing that has come out from his younger days said there could be no peace, basically blaming Palestinians. It seems to me, obviously he'd be the vice president.
So this young man, this young American man of Palestinian Arab ethnicity, is making some absolutely excellent points. And I really, really hope that not only does he, but all the other American Arabs, whether they're Muslim or Christian or atheists or Druze or Coptic Christians, whatever they are, that they really take to heart and they do not follow blindly like many other minority groups have. For example, Black Americans that have 95% blindly followed the Democratic Party. And all they've basically done is that the Democratic Party has put those Black Americans onto the plantations, but they're Democratic plantations, and they're getting duped, folks. Duped. It's an acronym, DUPED. The Democratic, exploitation, right? Plantation. The Democrat utopian plantation to be exploited for democracy. Duped. It's a utopia that they continually have sold the Black population. And finally now, hopefully, more Black Americans are starting to realize that the Democratic Party has sold them literally into plantation mentality, as if it was back in the early days of the United States of America. It's no different if you're holding somebody to be a slave to economics, a slave to job seeking, a slave to inflation, a slave to all of these things. So I'm just hoping that the American Arab population really does its homework, is not swayed by the crocodile tears of Kamala Harris and the Democrats, and demands of them the things that they're demanding before they vote for them. Otherwise, you know what? Third party. Look at Trump. Look, no party, folks, no party, Republican or Democrat, is going to, if you're thinking that the Republicans come into party or Trump comes in or the Democrats come in, that they're going to just magically, say to Israel, We're not part. No, that's never going to happen. Now, as far as the ceasefire, I believe the only person that could bring about some type of a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel is really Donald Trump. Look what he did with the Abraham Accords. Look what he did for the other peace type of negotiations that were going behind the scenes. And that as soon as Biden came into office, they stopped. They stopped a peace treaty between Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and Israel because they didn't want to give President Trump credit for creating something like that, which allowed Iran to come in and start their proxy wars and do what they were doing to continue to destabilize the Middle East. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasser. If you haven't done so already, check out our other video links above and below. Leave with my final thought as always: when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.